Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 2, Text 4. सा च तद् आश्रमोपवनम् अतिरमणीयम् विविधनिबिड विटपि विटप निकरस श्लिष्टपुरट. Oh, it's actually संश्लिष्टपुरट लतारूढ़स्थल विहंगमिथुनैः प्रोच्यमानश्रुतिभिः प्रतिबोध्यमानसलिल कुक्कुटकारण्डव कलहंसादिभिर्विचित्रम् उपकूजितामलजलाशय कमलाकरम् उपबभ्राम. This is the translation. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshipping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. Please repeat. The Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshipping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. Text 5. I'll just read it now. तस्याः सुललित गमनपद विन्यास गति विलासायाश्चानुपदम् खणखणायमान रुचिर चरणाभरणस्वनम् उपाकर्ण्य नरदेव कुमारः समाधियोगेनामीलित नयन नलिन मुकुलयुगलम् ईषद्विकचय्य व्यचष्ट. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. As Purvachitti passed by on the road in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnitra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes, and when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Sorry of a fall down. Purport. It is said that yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Dhyanavasthita tadgatena manasa pashyanti yam yogina. Srimad Bhagavatam 12:13-1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice sampreksha nasikagram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis sometimes practice a fashionable form of yoga by closing their eyes and meditating, but we have actually seen so much so-called yogis sleeping and snoring while meditating. Sleeping and snoring while meditating. This is not the practice of yoga. To actually practice yoga, one should keep his eyes half open and gaze at the tip of his nose. If you actually try that, you'll get a headache, first. You'll get a headache. But actually after some time, you'll get to know how to balance. And then because of the tension of the muscles here, the eyes won't go to sleep. But it's a difficult position to keep. But the yogis, they do like that. That's why if you see even Lord Shiva, he's half open eyes. Although Agnidhra, the son of Priyavrata, was practicing mystic yoga and trying to control his senses, the tinkling sound of Purvachitti's ankle bells disturbed his practice. Yoga Indriya Samyamaha. You're standing or sitting? Yoga Indriya Samyamaha. Actual yoga practice means controlling the senses. One must practice mystic yoga to control the senses, but the sense control of a devotee who fully engages in the service of the Lord with his purified senses, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam, CC Madhya 19.117, can never be disturbed. Srila Prabodhananda Saraswati therefore stated, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Protkhat Damshtrayate, Chaitanya Chandramrita 5. The practice of yoga is undoubtedly good because it controls the senses, which are like venomous serpents. When one engages in devotional service, however, completely employing all the activities of the senses in the service of the Lord, the venomous quality of the senses is completely nullified. It is explained that a serpent is to be feared because of its poison fangs. But if those fangs are broken, the serpent, although it seems fearsome, is not at all dangerous. Devotees therefore may see hundreds and thousands of beautiful women with fascinating bodily movements and gestures, but not be allured, whereas such women would make ordinary yogis fall. Even the advanced yogi Vishwamitra broke his mystic practice to unite with Menaka and beget a child known as Shakuntala. The practice of mystic yoga therefore is not sufficiently strong to control the senses. Another example is Prince Agnidhra, whose attention was drawn to the movements of Purvachitti, the Apsara, simply because he heard the tinkling of her ankle bells. In the same way that Vishwamitra Muni was attracted by the tinkling bangles of Menaka, Prince Agnidhra, upon hearing the tinkling bangles of Purvachitti, immediately opened his eyes to see her beautiful movements as she walked. The prince was also very handsome. As described herein, his eyes were just like the buds of lotus flowers. As he opened his lotus-like eyes, he could immediately see that the Apsara was present by his side. Om Ajnanatmirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sujeevam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. In movies, especially Bollywood movies, they show all these things, and then after that, happily married. Even in other fairy tales, happily ever after. Actually, happily never after. Anyway, this Agnidhram, see, there's a huge difference between Priyavrata's meditation and Agnidhra's meditation. Priyavrata was meditating, he absolutely did not want to get married. His father. And he was preached to by Narad Muni, and he took the instruction to heart, and he did not want to marry. And later on, Brahma came down and asked him to marry because he had to rule the world. And when Kshatriya, when he's ruling, then he has to perform Rajasuya sacrifice, Ashwamedha sacrifices, and for all this, there has to be a husband and wife. Even Ramachandra Bhagavan, when he was doing Rajasuya sacrifice, golden, he put, although Sita Devi was already left by then, he put a golden statue of Sita Devi and then did the yajna. So, husband and wife should be there to do all these kinds of karmakandi rituals. And when one is ruling the world, one has to deal with this world. So, even though like Yudhishthir Maharaj, he did the Rajasuya sacrifice, it was not for karmakanda's, reason. There's actually a nice explanation in the 10th canto, 70th chapter, verse number 4 or something, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, if I'm not wrong, he explains that Yudhishthir Maharaj had no interest in performing a Rajasuya sacrifice. But because Krishna asked him to do so, and also the explanation was given that he used these opportunities because in a Rajasuya sacrifice you have to invite all the kings of the world. He invited demigods also. So he wanted to establish Krishna as the supreme in that assembly. So for that reason, he performed a Rajasuya sacrifice. Something that would attract the attention of people, but then bring them to the point of accepting Krishna as the supreme. And in that incident, 1070-41. यक्ष्यति त्वां मखेन्द्रेण राजसूयेन पाण्डवः पारमेष्ठ्यकामो नृपतिस्तद्भवाननुमोदताम्. Desiring unrivaled sovereignty, King Yudhishthira intends to worship you with the greatest fire sacrifice, the Rajasuya. Please bless his endeavor. King Yudhishthira is described here as Parameshtra Kama, or desiring Parameshtra. Disclaimer, this is not Prabhupada's purport. But anyway, the subject is being discussed. He is described here as Parameshtra Kama, or desiring Parameshtra. The word Parameshtra means unrivaled supremacy and also indicates the supreme personality of Godhead. This is interesting, meaning. Because the Supreme Lord is also unrivaled in his supremacy. So the word Parameshtra means unrivaled supremacy and also indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead who stands at the very height of all existence. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada translates Narada's message as follows, because they are quoting from the Krishna book here. You have inquired about your cousins, the Pandavas, and the role of their well-wisher, and therefore I shall let you know about their intentions. Now please hear me. First of all, may I inform you that King Yudhishthira has all material opulences that are possible to achieve in the highest planetary system, Brahmaloka. He has no material opulence for which to aspire, and yet he wants to perform the Rajasuya sacrifice only to get your association and to please you. He wants to worship you in order to achieve your causeless mercy, and I beg to request you to fulfill his desires. So this is Prabhupada's explanation in the Krishna book. Since the word Parameshtra may also indicate the position of Lord Brahma, the term Parameshtra Kama is taken here by Srila Prabhupada to indicate not only that King Yudhishthira desired Lord Krishna's association and mercy, but also that King Yudhishthira himself possessed Parameshtra, all the opulence of Lord Brahma. No, actually, there is another explanation. Is it 42? Is it this one? Where is it? I think so. I think maybe before that or something. Anyway, there is an explanation in the purport by one of the acharyas that Yudhishthira made use of these situations or events to broadcast the glories of the Lord. So similarly, the devotees may organize big festivals, but that is to glorify the Lord so that many people can come. Now, when we organized Rath Yatra, we had 15 to 20,000 people, and when we are having a class, we have 5 people. So somehow or other, get them to serve the Lord. Now we are trying to build a temple, and for this reason, many people may come forward to contribute. In that way, they will serve. So when there are some big projects centered around the Lord, then it invites many people to come and participate in the service. So therefore, the devotees always try to arrange massive programs to induce the service mentality or the service attitude of the people in general. Actually, the Lord is already the owner of everything, all planets. Then why certain land has to be bought for certain $1 million, or such and such money has to be raised to purchase? The Lord already owns it. But in this way, one is brought together to serve the Lord. The ownership, so now I'm telling something else. Let's go there, since I'm already distracted. It's not the growth of Thakur. 1072-3, I think. Sri Yudhishthira Uvacha Kraturajena Govinda Rajasuyena Pavani Yakshe Vibhutir Bhavatas Tatsampadayana Prabho. Yudhishthira said, O Govinda, I desire to worship your auspicious opulent expansions by the Rajasura sacrifice, the king of Vedic ceremonies. Please make our endeavor a success, my lord. Purport Srila Sridhar Swami states that the word Vibhuti refers to Lord Krishna's expansions, Amshan, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explains that here the word Vibhuti refers to Lord Krishna's opulent expansions within this world, such as the demigods and other empowered beings. Thus, Srila Prabhupada treats this verse as follows in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My dear Lord Krishna, the sacrifice known as Rajasuya Yajna is to be performed by the emperor and is considered to be the king of all sacrifices. By performing the sacrifice, I wish to satisfy all the demigods who are your empowered representatives within this material world, and I wish that you kindly help me in this great adventure so that it may be successfully executed. As far as the Pandavas are concerned, we have nothing to ask from the demigods. We are personally fully satisfied to be your devotees. As you say in the Bhagavad Gita, persons bewildered by the material desires worship the demigods. But my purpose is different. I want to perform this Rajasuya sacrifice and invite the demigods to show that they have no power independent of you, that they are all your servants and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Foolish persons with a poor fund of knowledge consider your lordship an ordinary human being. Sometimes they try to find fault in you and sometimes they defame you. Therefore, I wish to perform this Rajasuya Yajna. I wish to invite all the demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all other exalted chiefs of the heavenly planets, and in that great assembly of demigods from all parts of the universe. I want to substantiate that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that everyone is your servant. So this is the thing. So the ownership of everything is the Lord. I mean, the ownership of the Lord of everything is already documented in the Vedic literature. Ishavasmidam sarvam. Just like every land has a title deed stating who is the owner of this and when he bought it and everything. So similarly, there are documents, title deeds of the entire universal property. Not only this universe. Universal is a very insignificant word, in fact, in comparison with the Lord, because there are, as we understand, many millions of universes in the material world, and which only constitute Ekamshana Sthito Jagat, which is 25% of the total creation of the Lord or energy of the Lord. The rest 75% being in the spiritual world. So the ownership of the entire material and spiritual world belongs to the Lord. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. When he says Sarvaloka, he is not just talking about Bhu, Bhuvar, Swargaloka, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka, and Tala, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatal, Rasatal, Patal, which is the 14 planetary systems of the material universe, but also the Maheshadham, which is the, Kailash, Sadashiva Kailash. I mean, not the one in the material world, but beyond the material world, on the border between material and spiritual worlds, where Lord Shiva resides. And above that is Haridham, which is Vaikuntha. And above that is the Goloka Dham, which is also Haridham, but it's a special Haridham, which is the topmost of all Haridham. Golokanamni nijadhamni tale chatasya devi mahesha haridhama suteshu teshu tete prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. This is from the Brahma Samhita. These are the planetary systems, the order of the planetary systems. Goloka Namni, with the name Goloka, there is a planetary system. Nijadhamni, there is the very own planet of Krishna. Nijadhamni. Talecha Tasya. So beneath that platform, Devi Mahesha Haridhama Suteshu Teshu. So Devi Dhama means this material world. Durga Devi. Durga means one very difficult to surmount, very difficult to cross. Ga means Gamayam, to go. Durga means very difficult to go. So a fort with all its ramparts and everything, that is called a Durga. A fort is called Durga. Because you cannot penetrate, cannot go in, cannot go out easily. So anything that is difficult to go with high security, that is all Durga. So in this material world, everybody is trapped and it is covered by layers. The entire space of this material world, the expanse of space, is enveloped by 7 elements, each 10 times thicker than the previous. Earth, 10 times thicker than the radius of the universe, space inside the universe. And then water layer, which is 10 times thicker than the earth layer. And fire, which is 10 times thicker than the water layer. In this way, so thick layer, shell, that is, um, what is that? Enveloping this universe. So you cannot actually penetrate. What to speak of penetration? Even to travel within this expanse of the space or within this universe is impossible for the scientists. So what to speak of penetrating the boundaries of the universe. So this is called Devi Dham. And Devi Dham is not even this one universe. All universes put together is Devi Dham. And then again, above that is the Mahesh Dham, which is Lord Shiva's abode. And above that is Haridham, which is Vaikuntha. And in Haridham, there is a topmost planet called the Goloka. So all these are owned by the Lord. Okay. Translation: lowest of all is located Devi Dham, mundane world. Next above it is Mahesh Dham, abode of Mahesh, which is Lord Shiva. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Haridham, abode of Hari, and above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. I owe the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of these graded realms. So he's owner of everything, so he doesn't need any purchase of any land to build a temple. But when the devotees gather the opulence from people who are actually otherwise thieves, because when they contribute to Krishna's cause, then they're actually using their wealth properly. Otherwise, everybody is a thief in this material world. Stena eva sauchyate. Because they have taken Lord's wealth and using it for their own personal gratification. So these projects will induce them to give something to Krishna at least. So in that way, their stealing may be a little bit reduced and the money will be spent in the proper way. Not only for temple, but even for book distribution. When they contribute something to the Lord, then they're actually becoming lawful citizens. So that is actually yajna process. Yajna process is to offer back to the Lord whatever we have received in a mood of devotion. Sahayajna praja srishtva. So for those who are not so advanced as to offer everything to the Lord directly, they may offer to the demigods, who are agents of the Lord, who bestow certain benedictions upon the worshippers. So Agnidhra wanted to go to Pitraloka and he worshipped Lord Brahma to get a wife. And he worshipped Lord Brahma in a place at the foothill of the Mandara mountain where there will be many girls coming. So his intention of worship was to find a girl. So these things are there, So he has an ulterior motive. But of course, he also wanted to, be a karmakandi, a follower of the Vedic principles. So Brahma asked some apsaras to walk by where he is meditating to disturb him. Actually, that is not the disturbance. He wanted that. Whereas in his father's case, he absolutely did not want. And Brahma had to try so hard to convince him to marry so that he would actually rule the world. Because his brother Uttanapad's, this thing is finished, lineage. And after that, Priyavrata. So there was nobody to rule the Bhumandal planetary system. And he was ruling the entire Bhumandal planetary system. All planets together he was ruling. And Narad Muni preached so heavily about renunciation and he was totally convinced. And he did not want to marry. And Brahma had to, appease him and, tell that this is the order of the Lord, you have to accept, you cannot deny. So, of course, because he was Krishna conscious, he was. But then the explanation we hear why his son Agnidra became then a Karmakanda, who was just a fruitive worker, who wanted to go to Pitraloka. What kind of, you know, aim is that? His father being such a great Vaishnava, and he. So the explanation given by who? This one Acharya from Sri Sampradaya. Yeah, forgot the name. So 5 to 2, I think it was mentioned that. Oh, because when Priyavrata was, in his family life, he was a little distracted by the beauty of his wife, and also he had lusty desires when he was actually begetting or conceiving the child. And that mentality of the father got onto the child. And therefore, he was not as great as the father. And of course, later on, Priyavrata, what is this, left the whole, family life. Of course, you will see later on, even Agnidra gave rise to Nabhi, the descendant who's, Suryavamsha, and Ramachandra actually took birth in this family. So sometimes, these things are arranged, and the Lord, engages somehow, even though they may be materially. That's the thing with demigods. Demigods, they are devotees, but they also have material desires. They're not pure devotees. And that's why, so the Lord is kind enough. Oh, you're not fully devoted. Get lost. No. You're not fully devoted. Okay, fine. So you want to control. Yes. You want to control something. So, okay, then you control and do it on my behalf. Do it on my behalf. And rule this world according to my ruling, according to my instructions. So, in that way, the demigods are situated. And here, Agnidra also was somewhat like that. And Brahma sent some Apsaras, okay, please you go and disturb him. And Apsaras went. It was not very difficult to disturb him because he was looking for disturbance. Why disturbance is not coming? So, so this was Agnidra's case, and he heard the tinkling, ankle bells or bangles of Purvachiti and gone. He became, in fact, later on, I think more explanation was given on how she seduces him. So you may think, why Bhagavatam is talking about these kinds of topics when it's supposed to be a Paramahamsa literature. Why are these kinds of topics discussed? So it is hard to learn lessons when we are the subject of that. But it is easier to learn lesson when somebody else is the subject. He went through this, she went through this, instead of I went through this, because I am looking at it from a first person's point of view. So these even, when Narad Muni was speaking to Prachina Barhi, he was talking about an allegorical story called Puranjan. But he was actually describing Prachina Barhi. But he spoke about this Puranjan story as if he was talking about somebody else, so that Prachina Barhi's attention won't be distracted by being humiliated or by being being too worried or self-conscious or what, so that he can, because we are always attached to our own situation, but other situation we are not as attached, so we can see it in a more objective way. So Narad Muni constructed a story, devised a story which indirectly pointed to Prachina Barhi's situation while talking to him. And he spoke in a cryptic way, that ordinary people wouldn't understand actually easily. So sometimes even Prachina Barhi had to ask him, what does this mean? He couldn't get it. So then he explained the meanings of the things. And so in this way, when we study the lives of not only the pure devotees, but also the ones who are not pure, and of course who have some not absolute demons, we're not really interested in their lives, but sometimes their lives are also mentioned, like Hiranyakashipu, Ravana. They're also mentioned in this because Paritrana Sadhunam Vinashasha Dushkritam, the Lord comes to save his devotees and destroy the demons. So, what makes him a demon? That is also shown. So, what is that? Nasato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayoropi drishtontas tvanayos tattvadarshibhi. In the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, 16th verse, it is said that the seers of the truth, they know the nature of the truth and also the nature of the untruth. And that means they also know the nature of those who pursue the truth or dedicate themselves to the truth, and the nature of those who dedicate themselves to the untruth. And this Maya is the untruth, is the illusion. And those who dedicate themselves to that are demons. And those who dedicate to the truth are called devotees. Lokesmin, what is that? Dvau bhuta sarva lokesmin daiva asura evacha Vishnu bhaktaha smrito daiva asurastad viparyayaha. There are only two kinds of people in this world. Daiva, asura. One is godly, one is demoniac. And the godly people are those who are devotees of the Lord. And the demoniac are those who are averse to the Lord. So these two things, because these are the, this is our independence. We have only two choices. We can be favorably disposed towards Krishna, willing to serve him, or willing not to serve. Not willing to serve him, sorry. Not willing to serve him. So these two things. So those who don't will to serve him, so they are asura or demons. So a devotee who understands the truth, he should be able to distinguish it from the untruth. Otherwise, he has no proper conception of the truth. If he thinks everything is truth, falsity is also truth, then where is the intelligence? He is easily fooled. Such a person is easily fooled. He is actually a fool who cannot distinguish between right and wrong, who cannot distinguish between truth and untruth. So the soul and the spiritual and the material, a spiritualist, he knows what is material and he knows what is spiritual. And he knows the controller of both also, the Supreme Lord. And therefore he knows the situation of everything as it is, without being skewed. Otherwise, we have a skewed perspective on everything, because we're seeing it from a non-absolute platform, a relative platform. Whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, when he describes everything from the absolute platform. So we get a much clearer perspective. In fact, the most clearer. Bhagavad Gita says, Yo mam evam asammudho janat purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata. 19. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, the son of Bharata. Another way this is described is here, 5:16 of Bhagavad Gita. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanah tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam. The other example, this is here is mentioned, let's see. When however one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So in the darkness, we are unable to see everything, and if we employ a torchlight or a lamp or a whole electricity grid, still we cannot see everything. But when the sun rises, then the sun can be seen, the whole world can be seen in its entirety, and then we can see ourselves as well. So this knowledge of Krishna is like that. We can see everything. Because if we don't understand, our existence is not independent. So if we do not understand what our existence is dependent on, We don't truly understand the purpose of our existence, why we are here, what are we supposed to do. Nothing we will understand without that connection of what we are dependent on. Only an independent person can do whatever he likes, and that is only the Lord. Swarat. Swarat means absolutely independent. He depends on absolutely nothing. Everything depends on him. Sutre Manigana Iva. The thread holds the necklace of the pearls. Everything is held by the thread, although the thread is invisible. But everything is the whole necklace is intact because only of the thread. So similarly, we cannot see the Lord now, but that does not mean He is not there. We should know that without Him, there will be no existence of anything. Even the pearl, the thread, is actually an incomplete material example. See, because the thread is not the creator of the pearl. The pearls are resting on a thread. Here in this case, in Krishna's case, Krishna is holding everything, but he's also the creator of everything and then holding it. Whereas the pearls are created somewhere else, and then the thread is created somewhere else, and then now the thread is just holding everything together. But in Krishna's case, it's even more complete than that. Because he is the owner, he is the creator of everything, and he sustains everything, and he dissolves everything at the end. So anyway, so a devotee has to be knowledgeable in all these aspects. As much as he should know about Krishna, he also should know about the intricacies of Maya and how Maya can attract the conditioned soul. You see, there is another. Okay, let's go to this. In the 11th canto, there is this mention of the how many gurus? 24 gurus. The 24 gurus who can teach us many things. And there are a whole list. So from each of those gurus, what we can learn is also described. Now, if you see this verse and the next verse, one of the gurus is the firefly. Firefly? I think so. What we can learn from the firefly. So, drishtva striyam devamayam tadbhavairajitendriyah pralobhitah patatyandhe tamasyagno patangavat. One who has failed to control his senses immediately feels attraction upon seeing a woman's form. See? Which is created by the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. Indeed, when the woman speaks with enticing words, smiles coquettishly, and moves her body sensuously, his mind is immediately captured, and thus he falls blindly into the darkness of material existence, just as the moth, maddened by the fire, rushes blindly into its flames. So the moth here is the guru, and teaching us about the intricacy of Maya. So, by seeing the activities of Agnidhra or similar Puranjan, Pururava, we can understand how Maya is how Maya starts her entreaties. How she introduces us to sense objects. And you see the next verse. योषिद्धिरन्याभरणाम्बरादि द्रव्येषु माया रचितेषु मूढः प्रलोभितात्मा ह्युपभोगबुद्ध्या पतङ्गवन्नश्यति नष्टदृष्टिः. A foolish man with no discrimination is immediately aroused at the sight of a woman, beautifully decorated with golden ornaments, fine clothing, and other accoutrements. Being eager for sense gratification, such a fool loses all intelligence and is destroyed just like a moth rushing into a blazing fire. So, Again, 331. No. Yeah. This one in the next verse, you see. तेष्वशान्तेषु मूढेषु खण्डितात्मस्वसाधुषु सङ्गं न कुर्याच्छोच्येषु योषित् क्रीडामृगेषु च. One should not associate with a coarse fool who is bereft of the knowledge of self-realization and who is no more than a dancing dog in the hand of a woman. The language is just so brutal. A dancing dog in the hands of a woman. This is Bhagavatam. Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga. Next, you see next one. न तथास्य भवेन्मोहो बन्धश्चान्य प्रसंगतः योषित संगाद यथा पुंसो यथा तत्संग संगतः. The infatuation and bondage which accrue to a man from attachment to any other object is not as complete as that resulting from attachment to a woman or to the fellowship of men who are fond of women. So no bondage is greater than the attachment or bondage to a woman. Same exact verse, just one word differing, is there in the 11th canto. This is 33135, right? Natathasya bhaven klesho instead of moho, and the rest all the same. Let's see if we can find that out. I don't know. 14, 30, I think. न तथास्य भवेत् क्लेशो बन्धश्चान्य प्रसंगतः योषित संगाद यथा पुंसो यथा तत्संग संगतः. Exactly the same, except one word. Moha means illusion, klesha means difficulty. The greatest illusion, greatest bondage is bondage to woman. The greatest difficulty, suffering here. See. Of all kinds of suffering and bondage arising from various attachments, none is greater than the suffering and bondage arising from attachment to women or from intimate contact with those attached to women. Somebody is in agreement. Somebody is in agreement. So you see, this is the result. So we have to understand so that we can be cautious. These examples are there given here. Although, here is how Purva Chitti seduced him, and here is how our Agnidra fell for her beauty, fell for her attractions. Although this looks like, like a romantic novel. But actually, the message is, if you read on, then the message, it will actually take you out of that. And especially if you hear it from a pure devotee. Otherwise, if you don't hear from a pure devotee, even the zenith of all pastimes of Krishna, which is the Ras Leela, at the topmost, apex Leela of Krishna, even that may arouse lusty desires, if we don't hear it from the proper source. But if we hear it from the proper source, even the actual lusty desires, like this Agnidra and Purvachitti, or in the case of Puranjan, or in the case of Pururava and Purvashi, in all these cases, this is actually lusty affairs. But they will turn us away from lust. Because by scrutinizingly studying, it's not that we shy away from this. We in these scriptures, these are discussed, these are described. But then, how one has to dovetail that knowledge to Krishna is explained here. How we can study this and see. So that's why, you see what this great Paramahamsa who spoke to Prahlad Maharaj, he said this, 7:13:26. Tatrapidam patinam cha sukhayanya banuttaye karmani kurvatam drishtva nivrittosmi viparyayam. In this human form of life, men and women unite for the sensual pleasure of sex. But by actual experience, we have observed that none of them are happy. Therefore, seeing the contrary results, I have stopped taking part in materialistic activities. See, what did he do? He observed. But observation, it is very dangerous to observe these kind of affairs. We have to observe through the lens of scripture. Yeah. We cannot sit outside the brothel and let's observe how how this man is falling for this prostitute, how she is actually moving her body to make him. We can't do that. We will also go and end up inside. So we can't play with Maya. But when we learn about such, descriptions in Srimad Bhagavatam, so Vyasadeva has carefully written these things in a way that will actually get us out of this. And when we especially hear it from a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, then we can see how we will be actually immune to this. We will become more stronger from this reading. The other example is Haridas Thakur, great devotee. Maya herself came in the dead of night. All these, just now, the description of the garden, the breeze and all these things. These are all, romantic inducements. When the atmosphere is nice and it's moonlit night and all these romantic, the songs. India is full of, they have explored every angle of a love story. What is that? Triangle. What is that? Love triangle. Sometimes square, rectangle, pentagon also is there. All kinds of options have been explored by Bollywood and all these Indian movies. But we cannot get any. In fact, by watching that, people become lusty. Here, because they only preach about lust. That's all. They think that and they end happily married. That is the end of the movie. That just started. It's just started. It only looks nice. Packaging is nice. But after that that they never show. After marriage, what happened? They don't show. All the adventure is until marriage. He will fight with the lady's father, and he will somehow fight with all the gundas, the rowdies, and everything, and finally secures a girl and lived happily ever after. Come on, that is total misdirection. So that's why when we hear about these topics from non-devotional, authors or directors, nothing good will come out of it. But because people are interested in these things, scriptures sometimes have these things. So that, it looks like nice story, let's read on. After that, give up all this and go back to God. So same thing, Mahabharata. Mahabharata was written for actually transmitting the Bhagavad Gita, which is 700 verses. And to get that 700 verses across, Vyasadeva has compiled 100,000 verses just to get the people interested. Because people are not interested in Bhagavad Gita. They are interested in what? Family politics. You go to Indian, ladies. I don't know now how much it is still current. But at least when I was young, my aunts, my mother never liked it, but my aunts, my grandmother, they used to watch these soap operas, TV serials. They're still current, right? Episodes will go on, thousands of episodes. They'll never stop. Drama going on and on, family politics. Series. For years and years, still going on. So, people are interested in these things. Family politics, some sports, some wars. We like to read these things. People like to read these things. Nobody likes to read history if there was no war. Right? If there was no war in history, how interesting would history be? Somebody became a hero and he fought like this, There's like so many stories, right? In India also there is one story where 21 people fought against 10,000. Of course, they died. All of them died, but they killed thousands in the process. Just 21, six Punjabis. So I mean, there are so many stories of heroism. So these interest people. There's something to talk about when there is some rivalry, when there is some competition, and somebody came over victorious. This is people want to talk about these things. So it creates topics for discussion. So in the Mahabharata, all these topics are covered, so that all kinds of people may be interested. And finally, they will be brought to the funnel system. The funneling, sales funnel. You have a big thing at the top, and right at the bottom there is this small thing you have to pass through. So here also same funneling. The people from all kinds of who are not so intelligent. That's why you see. I'll show you the verse. ईशूद्रद्विजबन्धूनां त्रयीन श्रुतिगोचरा कर्मश्रेयसि मूढानां श्रेय एवं भवेदिह इति भारतमाख्यानं कृपया मुनिना कृतम्. Out of compassion, the great sage, who is this Vyasadeva, thought it wise that this would enable men to achieve the ultimate goal of life. Thus, he compiled the great historical narration called the Mahabharata for women, laborers, and friends of the twice born. So women, Shudras, Vaishyas, they are considered not very intelligent class of the society. So they are interested in lesser topics, not very, high elevated topics. They're interested in worldly affairs, like not so advanced in understanding God. Huh? Huh? Facebook. Yeah. So they're not very interested in higher topics. So for them, Mahabharata was written. So they are interested in all these things, drama. So all the drama was done, and finally people were brought to the Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all the Vedas. In fact, Bhagavad Gita is more clearer. I mean, it's clearer than the Vedas themselves, because Vedas are sometimes very indirect, not easily discernible meaning. But Bhagavad Gita is absolutely clear. Similarly, Bhagavatam also is like that. It's absolutely very clear, the meaning. So these incidents, they will teach us many, many things. So for a brahmachari, for a sannyasi, see, there is one verse. Nishkinchanasya bhagavad bhajanom mukhasya. Sir, 11:8. निष्किञ्चनस्य भगवद्भजनोन्मुखस्य पारं परं दिगमिशोर्भवसागरस्य सन्दर्शनं विषयिणामथ योषितां च हा हन्त हन्त विषभक्षणतोऽप्यसाधु. Greatly lamenting, the Lord then informed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, alas, for a person who is seriously desiring to cross the material ocean and engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord without material motives, seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested is more abominable than drinking poison willingly. See? More abominable than drinking poison willingly. That means drinking poison willingly means suicide. The worse than suicide is this. To be what? Seeing a materialist engaged in sense gratification or seeing a woman who is similarly interested. So therefore, it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, (260) Yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramathini haranti prasabham manah. The senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. You see, they don't sweep the mind of a man who is, like not so rigid. No, even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. senses are so strong. And here 267. Indriyanam hi charatam yanmanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayurnavam bhasi. As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. How dangerous. So dangerous. Now, 6:13. Let's go here. This is not only a topic for brahmacharis, this is also a topic for grihasthas, everybody. Because, this is, those verses which, help brahmacharis to be brahmacharis and not become. But even after going inside, we still have to be aware of the dangers. Otherwise, we will always take the woman to be an object of gratification than an object of, or what is that? Somebody to engage in Krishna service. It's Krishna's object of gratification, not my object of gratification. So everyone belongs to Krishna. We are to be enjoyed by Krishna. So here, you see, how one should practice yoga. How one should practice yoga is explained here. Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter 13th and 14th verses. Samam kaya shirogrivam dharayannachalam sthiraha samprekshya nasikagram svam दिशश्चानवलोकयन् प्रशान्तात्मा विगतभीर् ब्रह्मचारि व्रते स्थितः मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तो युक्त आसीत मत्परः. One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, because they're supposed to live in the forest and do this. So many wild animals and insects, bugs and everything can be killed any moment. But devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, brahmachari vrata. One should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. And in the purport, there is a verse from, I think, Parashara, Yagyamalkya. Yeah. Karmana manasa vacha sarvavasthasu sarvada sarvatra maithunatyago brahmacharyam prachakshate. The vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words and mind at all times, under all circumstances and in all places. You see that? Works, words and mind at all times. So this is brahmacharya practice. There is another verse which is quoted in the Matchless Gift book. Only the English is quoted in the Bhagavatam 6:12-13. But what is that? Smaranam, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Keli, Prekshanam, Guhya Bhashanam. What is that? Sankalpodhyavasayascha, Kriya Nirvrittirevacha. Kelihi. Shravanam Kelihi. Guhya Bhashanam. Yes. Vasayascha Kriya Nirvrittirevacha. Oh wow, there is a continuation of this. Wow, I didn't know this. Etan Maithunam Ashtangam. You see, Maithunam Ashtangam. 8 kinds of sex life. Pravadanti Manishinaha Viparitam Brahmacharyam Etadevashtalakshanam. Wow. Iti Shamo Manaso Niyamanam. Iti Shamo Manaso Niyamanam Damo Bahendriyanam Tyago Danam Yamo Himsadih Niyamo Japadihi Bhavartha Deepika. Yes, 6:1-13, correct. This is actually Bhavartha Deepika, is a book which is nothing but the commentary of Bhagavatam by Sridhar Swami, the first commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhavartha Deepika. So he is writing this. There are 8 kinds of sex life. Now, brahmacharya, there are different kinds of sex life, gross and subtle. Gross sex life and subtle sex life. What is that he says? Smaranam. When you read some novel, some fiction, the behavior between man and woman, kissing or having sex life like that. So many novels nowadays is fiction. This is actually from a conversation of Prabhupada or lecture, I think. Nowadays is fiction, they clearly describe everything. So this smaranam, remembering. I have not actually had sex life, but by reading these rascal literatures, there is also sex life, subtle. See? But today's topic looks like that. The next verse goes even more like how she actually seduced him and everything. And sometimes even other descriptions are there when Mohini avatar, she comes, to distract the demons. How the demons, they describe her beauty, every part of her body. So I mean, these are like explicit descriptions. But then they take us to the actual conclusion. Smaranam Kirtanam and talking. Oh, I read. You see, so many abominable things are going on. In India, one bookseller, he told me that somebody in Europe or America wrote one book that the father fell in love with his daughter. Is that a fact? And that book was selling in India, and I have seen it. Just see. So this kind of smaranam keli, prekshanam, to see when we prove girl or boy very minutely, prekshanam. You see, prekshanam, like it is, what is this nowadays? Pornography. To see. Guhya bhashanam. What is it? Whispering. So yeah, secret talks between man and woman. Guhya bhashanam. Nowadays it's very easy. You don't have to actually meet somewhere. Private message apps. All with the intention of having sex. Sankalpa, then determination. I shall meet this nice at that price, that place. Okay. I don't think the translation. I think what is it called? Transcription, I think, is not correct. I shall meet this, what? I think nice at that price. What is that place? I think, yeah, maybe basically meeting this girl at this place, is to actually make plans. Adhyavasaya, and trying for that, making endeavors. Determining means to make plans, but to actually make endeavor to do that physical activity. Adhyav, complete that scheme or schedule. Adhyavasaya, kriya, then action. Kriya nirvrittirevacha, and feeling happiness in that way. These are 8 kinds of sexual intercourse. Not that actually meeting is sexual intercourse, but these are subtle sexual intercourse. Therefore, a brahmachari has to avoid it. So that is tapasa, that is tapasa. Tapasa brahmacharya. Etan maithunam ashtangam pravadanti manishinaha. Maithunam ashtangam. Ashtangam means 8-fold, 8 ways of, 8 types of. Maithunam means sex. 8 kinds of sex. Smaranam kirtanam kelihi. Smaranam kirtanam kelihi. Prekshanam guhya bhashanam. Sankalpa adhyavasaya kriya nirvrittir. So these are the 8 things. Those who are manishina means thoughtful persons. They say authority. This is authority. Sridhar Swami is in the parampara. I think that's what he's saying. He is so manishina. Thoughtful writers or thoughtful sages, they recommend that this kind of subtle and gross sexual life is against brahmachari. Viparitam brahmacharyam etad evashta lakshanam. And similarly, there are 8 kinds of opposite actions which can keep one in brahmachari. What is that? Shamo, manaso, niyamanam, sama. So 8 things which controlling the mind, keeping it equibalanced. Damo, bahendriyanam. Now damo means to controlling the external senses. Sama means controlling the mind. Tyago means giving up sense gratification, and dānam, to give in charity. Tyaga means renouncement. There are so many people come and inquiring of tyaga. Do we have to give up our family life? Is that necessary? Do they not ask? Kamsutra says yes. So they do not know anything of tyaga. Renouncement means, that is recommended in Bhagavad Gita, that if whatever you possess you give in charity for Krishna, don't forget that is tyaga. Not that I give up my profession as a lawyer or as this uh, and I become a sannyasi, that is tyaga. No, you can earn as much as you can, but you give it for Krishna as service. That is tyaga, that is renounced. So in this way, all this is mentioned. So you see, so this is all constitutes sex life. And topics like these in the Bhagavatam, they teach us how Maya enters. Therefore, we can know how to be alert. You know, how to be alert. So we can know from this. Oh, if this happens, then the next will this happen, then this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. You know. So the sequence. So we should be aware of these sequences. So that's why these things are mentioned. So it is not that the spiritualist is not unaware of this. He is very, very much aware. He is very, very careful about where and how he deals in this material world. What will happen if we deal with women? What happens if we deal with um, people of money who have too much money and we become too close with them, and what happens then? All these examples are given in the Shastra. So therefore, we have to learn from this. So I would like to stop there. Any questions or comments on this topic? No questions? Then we'll stop here. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, जय गौर प्रेमानंद. Of course, there are many verses on this topic, but it will go on forever. Hare Krishna.